What's going on? Welcome back to the channel. So today when I talk to you about Rezolve, I want to go over some of the data points, break it down on what's really moving it and why this might be a good opportunity to buy. Before we get into any of that, make sure you guys hit that thumbs up. And with that, let's get right to it. So Rezolve is up 0.91%, 767 the low, 845 the high, and a lot of volume. So 4.6 million shares being traded, 15.06 is the average. During the pre-market, you did have a lot of optimism, had a high of around 882. So I'll go over exactly what caused all of this. But interestingly enough, once the market did open, you had some institutions selling, which caused all of this right here. So even looking on the dark pool, you had this $1.8 million transaction. That's what really kickstarted all of the selling. And of course, dark pool doesn't actually say what is buys and sells. You kind of have to correlate this with the price action on the actual chart as well. You can kind of look at the transactions before and after. So for instance, it went from 843 to 820 to 801. So this really kickstarted a lot of selling. At the same time, you do have algorithmic trading very much active today. And I think they are adding a certain level of suppression. But at the end of the day, given the circumstances and the big catalysts that are coming out, this might be a good opportunity to buy the dip on, but you guys do your own due diligence. But getting right to it though, what caused all the optimism during the pre-market? There was ultimately two things. One was retail sales. So month over month, it did come in at 0.6. The forecast was 0.4. And in case you do not know, that is exactly Rezolve's business, dealing with consumers. And they, based on yesterday's news, they really want to integrate more and more into the American market, right? So this data is very, underline very relevant to Rezolve. So don't be surprised throughout the day if you do start to see it get bought up, because this data is pretty good if you ask me. Aside from that though, Rezolve also did put out news this morning at 8 a.m. and it was this. So they did bring on Crispin Lowry, who is from Microsoft, and he is now going to be the EVP of growth. And so based on the last couple conferences, the fireside chats, I do believe it was the HC Wainwright one, they alluded to some partnerships coming down the pipeline and in the next couple quarters. So in reality, you bring on someone for growth right before you have a massive expansion. So I think in reality, we've seen a lot of good momentum with the stock. So over the last 1 month, it is up 160%. But based on this new hire, I think more growth is going to be anticipated. So let me know your general thoughts on this. Most likely this is going to be a key talking point during their upcoming earnings, which is on October the 1st. On a side note, I actually had a comment in my video yesterday asking if I'm going to be live streaming it. So if you do want me to live stream it, let me know. I can definitely do so. But I think this is a pretty good insight to kind of the bullishness of their upcoming earnings and just the foreseeable future. So let me know your viewpoint on that. At the time of doing this video, shorts are increasing about 37,000 shares. So not all that much. 9% of the free float is being shorted, works out to be 10.65 million shares overall being shorted. Cost to borrow average is 91.63. So that is an annual rate, not a daily rate. So just keep that in mind. But the fact that shorts aren't doubling down, in my opinion, is rather optimistic. There's about 950,000 shares available to be shorted on a side note. So whenever you see, for instance, the stock get limited supply, let's say to this 150, the reason why it jumped from 150 to 650 and then to 900 is because of institutions buying. So sometimes institutions do buy just for the purposes of lending out stock. And this is why, going back to the dark pool, most likely you did see some transactions during the pre-market, which were really pushing things higher to that high of, it looks like during the pre-market of 827. So at the end of the day, I'm sure some of those transactions were just to eventually lend out. But the fact that shorts aren't taking advantage of that kind of goes to show that they do feel like there's a little bit more upside. Just right now, I think algos are the main cause of why things are really starting to push a little bit lower, but we'll just have to wait and see. Aside from that, looking at the options, keep in mind the market's only been open roughly 20 minutes, but 1.6 million in calls, 94,000 in puts. 54% of all the options being done are bearish in nature. And most likely, like I said, just based on that dollar value, you should be seeing some new chains coming out, and also most likely a extension of new actual strike prices. So one thing I do want to bring up though is we have a new one, and it is $15. But if Rezolve, let's say, gets to $10, then most likely you'll see a extension to probably 20 in my opinion. But the fact that market makers just added that $15 strike today goes to show that they feel that there's a possibility of that being on the table. So nobody's really doing that or paying attention to that one yet because it's new. Aside from that though, from the bull standpoint, you see consensus for it to be above, looks like $9 for the end of this week. Bears are anticipating for it to be sub, not really much activity in reality, but sub 750 for the most part. And then these are all the transactions occurring on the secondary market above $100,000. These are all the transactions, as I brought up already, on the dark pool. And right now with it at 764, it is kind of getting dragged down, unfortunately. But it is trading between this R2 and this R1. So one key point to really watch for is that 745 today. So that has to be kind of the line in the sand. If it does fail to hold that, then you could see a pull lower to kind of between this R1 and the pivot. So 616 would be the next strong support. So for today, just watch for 745. Flip side, 824, and then 954 is going to be the next strong target / resistance points. So again, during the pre-market, it was actually trading between this R3 and this R2. So it's not too far-fetched to assume that we could see a very nice recovery back to that point. So just kind of wait and see. Aside from all that though, on the actual chart itself, we're seeing a little bit of consolidation, more walls of sellers. So this is why things are starting to kind of escalate a little bit more. As I've brought up, you have a couple gaps right here that do potentially need to be filled. And I know sometimes gaps don't always get filled, but I think given how fast Rezolve's actually gone up, you might see some consolidation, but generally speaking, that is going to be very healthy for it. If it does get filled, you'll have stronger support levels, and then you'll be able to really move on higher. But for right now, you see just, again, this column right here, massive amount of algo trading. As far as news, I think other than the thing that kind of came out yesterday and today's news, there's not really that much in articles really coming out, which is rather surprising because, like I said, Rezolve's done phenomenal over the last little bit. So over the last 1 month, up 160%. And surprisingly, we don't have that much in like analyst coverage or just people paying attention to it. So we did get a couple ratings on a side note yesterday in case you missed my video. So we did get a new buy rating from H.C. Wainwright, went from $4 to $9. Then Roth MKM went from 425 to 9. So H.C. Wainwright, I'm not really too bullish on, only because I've seen a lot of kind of, how do I put this nicely, sketchy companies kind of pay, in my opinion, for these types of ratings from H.C. Wainwright. So I don't really think that their analysts are fully credible. But once we start to get some of the like big names such as JPM and whatever else, once they start to pay attention to Rezolve, that is where Wall Street will really pay attention and start to buy up. And it's always a delayed effect, right? Because you'll have a lot of those big names buying into the stock, and then they go out and say, hey, you know what? This stock is bullish, everyone should buy. They always do that, right? That's manipulation, and whatever, it is what it is. But generally speaking, I think these are good, but it'd be better if we have some of the bigger names, in my opinion. But regardless, let me know your general thoughts on Rezolve. Don't forget to hit that thumbs up. On a side note, this is what their current financials are. So once we do get their upcoming earnings, we'll have a little bit more additional insight, and that way we'll be able to kind of compare a lot of their key metrics on how things are and what percentage growth they're at, and we can kind of put a good price point, realistic price point on Rezolve. A lot of people, like I said, are throwing out $100 price targets, $50 price targets. In my opinion, I think for face value, roughly around $10 is realistic given their growth, just the sector. for right now, but who knows, with their upcoming earnings, if they have a lot of big growth, that could put them a little bit higher on the scale. So let me know your general thoughts. Don't forget to hit that thumbs up and subscribe. I always greatly appreciate that. And then one final thing, if you are looking for a lot of good buy signals on stocks, options, crypto, pop over to my Patreon. I put out daily day trades, numerous swing trades. Worthwhile to pop over there and take a look. And actually, it looks like Rezolve is turning green or wanting to be green right now. So good stuff is ahead. So again, potential good buying opportunity today. With that said, appreciate all of you watching.